Force Revolution.
Hello and welcome back to Inconvenient Vedic Truths. Today we're going to talk about intoxication. So we talked about the principles of Dharma, the four legs of Dharma in another episode, and how meat eating destroys the leg of compassion. Now this leg of Dharma is tapas, or austerity, or focus, and what destroys that is intoxication. So this modern society, Kali Yuga, this time we're in, the age of quarrel and hypocrisy and vice, then these things are very prominent. Almost everybody has a problem with intoxication. You literally can't go anywhere out in the city where intoxication is not involved in some way or other, alcohol or other drugs. But for spiritual life, intoxication is it's very harmful, because you're trying to control the mind, trying to focus the mind on the meditation that we do, mantra meditation. And if you take intoxication, then yeah, your mind's all over the place. Your minds are all over the place anyway in this day and age. There's so many distractions, but as soon as you start taking intoxication, then yeah, that destroys the focus of the mind. And that's often what people want to do. Actually, people want to escape. You know, there's so much going on in the mind, so much anxiety and worries, that, you know, at the end of the day, usually people just want to drown that out. You know, drown your sorrows, as they say. If you think about all the words people use for getting drunk, you know, it's like, oh, you're going to get hammered, you're going to get smashed, you're going to get wasted. You know, on and on. They're all negative. It's like self-harm. They're all ways of just self-harming. They're not positive. You don't say, I'm going to go out and I'm going to get really happy, you're going to get joyful, I'm going to become peaceful. Certainly not by alcohol. That kind of intoxication or hard drugs, that's not going to be achieved. Therefore, all those things that people say and people brag, oh yeah, I got so wasted on it. Like, why would you want to get wasted? Like, what, you're wasting your time, you're wasting your life, wasting your mind by taking these intoxications. If you think about the word intoxication, or toxics, poison, we're literally poisoning ourselves, poisoning our minds and our bodies with these things. So for a spiritual life, for a life of peace and inner happiness, then yeah, we need some kind of self-control with that. I was lucky that in my teens I discovered what we call straight edge, which is something subculture of the punk movement. It started in America and then spread all around the world, which was basically the same sort of principles of no drinking, no drugs, no smoking, and then it sort of extended to other things as well. And so many of those people, you know, did end up on a spiritual path, because it's a foundation. Again, it's not the goal, but it's a great foundation to then go further. But again, if you think that's the goal, if you think just being free of intoxication, that's the goal in itself, well, that's again falling short of the mark, because it's like, okay, so now you've freed your mind from the pollutants and you've calmed your mind down and stop doing that. So then what do you do? So it's a definition by negation, in a sense, straight edge. Like, you don't do that, so you've got an edge. But then, so what do you do with that? What you do with that is the positive thing. So so we advocate that, you know, you can only really be happy by being on the spiritual platform. Just negating things on the trail platform, that just sort of brings to the level of almost like zero, really, like going from a negative just to a point of negating that. But then you need to come to a positive. You need something that's going to give you positive engagement. Of course, people in straight edge, you may get involved in other things, you know, and that's okay, you know, like music, positive music, but oftentimes that is not really enough to satisfy the soul. You know, how long can you play your favorite record? Like you put on Minor Threat, Straight Edge, or in My Eyes. You know, I love these songs, but like, you can't play them over and over again. Material pleasures diminish the more you do them. The more we get tired, then we need something different, something else. And so, you know, if we end up doing the same thing, it becomes tiresome. So it's a great foundation, but, you know, we need to go further, we need to go deeper. than just not taking intoxications. And then from that foundation, that bedrock, then we can actually start to attain something positive, some peace and some bliss. In fact, if you engage in a mantra meditation, which is a central point of Bhakti Yoga, then what you're doing is you're actually connecting with the source of all pleasure. Krishna means the all-attractive, Rama means the source of all pleasure. And you can say, well, how are you getting that? Aren't you just reciting the names? But on the spiritual platform, Abhinatvam Namanamino, there's no difference between the named and the name. On this material platform, the relative world, we can't satisfy ourselves just with the name. If you're thirsty, you can't go water, water, water. It's not going to, you get more thirsty. But the spiritual platform, or the transcendental realm, just the opposite, just like everything else here. Well, the whole opposite of this world is the transcendental realm, the realm which is non-material. And so that's full of bliss, full of knowledge and eternal. This place is temporary, full of ignorance and suffering. So yeah, we're now situated, we're fallen into the opposite world. But we can go back. We can, if we act on that platform, then we go back to that, the real home. Yeah, so by these names, reciting these names, someone might think, well, what's that going to do for me? But what it does is it puts you directly in contact with the source of all bliss and all pleasure. Who doesn't want that? And when you realise that, then you realise that that's the goal, that's where we need to be. We're all looking for pleasure. But on the material platform, we're getting frustrated. But as soon as we connect again to the source of all pleasure, of spiritual pleasure and bliss, Ananda, then there's no limit. Anandam buddhivardhanam, says it's ever increasing. So material things ever decrease and spiritual things ever increase, and the more you do it, the more you taste it. But of course you have to try it to taste it. It's like if I tell you a recipe for something and you read it, you don't taste it by reading the recipe. You have to you put the recipe into practice, you make it, and then you taste it, and then you're actually experiencing it. You can read all the recipes in the world, but you don't know what they taste like until you try them. So, oftentimes we tell people to engage in these processes, mantra meditation and Bhakti Yoga, chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. And then people say, oh no, I can't do that, or we can come up with all kinds of excuses. I know I've got my own method, I'm doing this, I'm already spiritual. We can think of all kinds of excuses, but why not try something? Like if something's given, then the best thing to do is to try it. That's what I did. I kept hearing these classes when I was first approaching this process, and everyone seemed to be saying, oh well, this is the process, this chanting of the mantras. So I thought, well, nothing to lose, I'm going to try it. And that was it. You try, even if you do like 5-10 minutes a day, and it makes a massive difference. Within a few days I was like, yeah, this is incredible. And 25 or so years later, it's still applicable, and it becomes more relishable. In the beginning it's not so relishable because it says we're in the jaundice of ignorance. Like if you've got jaundice, then even sweet things taste horrible, and you're like, oh, that's not appealing. But what it is with jaundice is like slowly as you do that, you do regain your original taste. So the spiritual process is a bit like that. At first you think, oh, this is not at all appealing, I'd rather do all the things I'm doing. But of course they're not giving us satisfaction. The material things aren't giving us satisfaction. But we may have no attraction to spiritual things, but it takes a bit of effort. And then you start to get an attraction. And that attraction ever increases, and then you automatically lose attraction. You lose attraction for things like intoxication. You see someone just drowning themselves in alcohol. How many problems are created in the world from people drinking? We might think, oh well, I'm okay, I'm just having one or two. But it's usually a slippery slope. There's a good statement, I can't remember, it's a famous person, he said that, talking about cocktails, and he says, one's okay, two's too many, but three's not enough. So it's a bit like that, you can say, oh yeah, a little bit, I just have a little sip or whatever like that, but usually it's a slippery slope. Unless we're very self-controlled, then usually we end up slipping all the way down. So And why are we doing that? If we're satisfied within, we don't need that. We don't need to drown. We don't need to sort of block out reality. No, we can live in reality, but you know, we can make that a happy reality. It's like now it started pouring with rain, but I'm happy within. That's not. I'm not like, oh no, this is miserable weather. No, it's, if you're happy within, then you know your external circumstances don't affect you that much. So you don't need to block out your circumstances by getting intoxicated. In one sense, you sort of intoxicate or absorbed in spiritual bliss. That's a kind of transcendental intoxication, you could say, absorption. You know, but it's not poisoning yourself. It's freeing yourself. Thank you very much, Joyce.